we are at Montreux Jazz Festival. This is your first time. This is my first time. How are you finding it so far?
It's such a beautiful town, so that's great. And we saw Massive Attack last night, so that's also great.
I know. How much have they influenced your kind of music?
So I will be honest, I haven't kept up with them, but you know, the iconic albums they dropped in the 90s were hugely influential for me, just for approaching beat-driven music in a whole new way, and then sort of loop-based music in a whole new way, I think, and bringing a lot more depth and emotion and really a whole new sound to it than you know, a lot of other stuff that was happening at the time.
Yeah. So how did you even begin this whole musical journey of yours? Because it's just so eclectic.
It is really eclectic, yeah. I have been doing different kinds of music things my entire life, and you know, I started on piano like many kids do, and I did the conservatory thing up to 6th grade. So that was a really great foundation. You know, learned a lot about theory, and piano is just such a great instrument to get to know music with, to understand music with. And then I picked up bass and guitar in my teens. My brother was a drummer, so I kind of got on his kit and taught myself some stuff there, and was at the same time really interested in recording. And I had just a little tape player, and I'd record my songs on that, and kind of immediately was interested in the ways that shaped the music. You know, how close are you to the microphone? You know, the medium that you're recording on, you know, it sounds different than trying to record on your computer. Like, all these things were really interesting to me. So I was also interested in recording, got into production with like pirated music software, and yeah, started a YouTube channel a few years ago where I was just posting whatever I felt like working on: originals, covers, comedy, and eventually where I kind of found my voice was in sharing my own creative processes, and really pulling back the curtain on how music is made in the studio. And I guess because that's just what's exciting to me, is being in the studio and experimenting and trying new things. So my YouTube channel is kind of a mix of me sharing my new music while also explaining how it came to be.
Yeah, and that's exactly what I find beneficial about your videos, coming from a very different side of music, but wanting to self-produce.
Yeah.
Using your videos as inspiration is just so beneficial, and they're so entertaining. But coming from a music background and then getting into film and learning to film yourself and edit, it's a very different skill set. So how did you, was it just trial and error?
Yeah, I really like that I have approached video differently from music. Music, where I have a lot of training, you know, both formal and kind of self-taught. It's just where I put all my extra time for years and years and years as I was growing up. But then with video, I have no formal training, and it's been really fun to have a creative outlet that you can approach from a completely different perspective, where you are doing a lot just by trial and error. And there's still sometimes things where I feel like this might be the completely wrong way to go about it, but I'm doing it and no one seems to be noticing, or whatever. And so it's a lot of fun that way. But then also there are some skills that transfer over. You know, if you've done a lot of audio editing, then working in a video timeline is quite similar. And I think even bringing some musicality to that process can be really beneficial. Like, I think pacing a video or a visual story has a lot in common with how you would structure a piece of music. So I think that's actually a benefit.
I was going to say timing, and your timing is fantastic. And even just the introduction and everything, it's just so, it's fast paced, but not too fast. Like, it's very easy to follow.
Cool. I do get comments where people kind of hate on that, though. But I think, you know, we have entire different generations of people watching YouTube. And I think it's great that there is content out there that's a lot more like laid back and just like talky and no cuts and whatever. But I think I've gone the other way to just because I'm hyper.
Well, and it's also, you have to develop your own style. You can't please everyone, right?
It's true. Yeah.
And we were talking about not pleasing everyone last night a bit. But yeah, with the video making, is there ever, so how I feel about music and production, and I'm definitely not as experienced, but sometimes I feel songs can almost never be finished. But with a video, I feel like there's a definite ending. Sometimes I'm definitely like, oh, that's a completed video. That feels fine. Maybe it's not perfect, but it's done. And that's the sort of satisfaction that I find. Do you feel the same way, or is it?
I guess there's a similar parallel with me. Yeah, I think you can always keep working on anything creative.
Yeah.
And I wonder if part of that feeling of a video being easier to finish or easier to tell when it's done is number one for me, not having the same kind of training with it. So not spotting as many things that I might want to go back and fix the way that I do with my music production. But then also, music is still my number one passion. So I think just the fact that I really care so much more about that side of it, it's a lot easier to get into a sort of perfectionist mind state with the music.
Yeah.
Whereas the video is I do work really hard on them and I enjoy that. And I like to like figure out all the little details that can make them great. But it's much easier for me to just kind of be like, oh, well, this is it's really just a container for the musical stuff that I work a lot harder on.
Yeah, and so the music's the priority.
Yeah, absolutely.
But with your music, and I know how prolific you are, but I can't actually fathom the output level. How many albums have you put out now? Like, how many tracks? You probably won't even be able to.
I don't know. Yeah. I think it's around 2,000 tracks. If we include like this early comedy project I did where it was like 30-second to a minute silly songs that I'd make in 2 hours, I did about 500 of those. And then I've just been putting out 80 to 100 songs a year for most of my adult life.
I feel so inspired by that, because there's a sort of level of thing, especially in sort of songwriting, when people are like, hold on to your songs and don't put them out into the world, and then write, and then just hold on to the ones that you think are the best. But really, you never know which ones are going to hit anyway.
You never know.
So you could be just losing, and you're only one song away if you're always releasing. But if you're not releasing, then you're not one song away. So I'm trying to think of ways that I could even get that close. But how do you overcome just the perfectionism side of it, just to be able to deliver each time?
I guess part of it was doing that comedy project where it was just something that. So the basis of that was I had this website where people could send me song ideas, and I would make the ones that I thought were interesting. But I'd always include this funny twist where I'd kind of be poking fun at the person who suggested the idea, just to make this like meta kind of humor. So that was a lot of fun, and that was sort of where I started building an audience online way back in 2004 is when that started.
So pre-YouTube.
Pre-YouTube, pre-social media. Like LiveJournal was where I got shared.
Wow.
And email. But so in doing that, I was pumping out so much material, and it was stuff that I didn't really care about either, because it was just, the musicality wasn't the focus. It was the fun and the humor and getting a reaction out of people, and just being excited about exploring the internet and the kind of connectivity that allows in a creative project. So I was just pumping out all this stuff, and I really quickly learned how little I knew about how a piece of music would be received. And so often the stuff that I thought was really the best would kind of fall flat, and then something that I just kind of tossed out there, made really quickly, or didn't think too much of, or even was not so confident about, people would really latch onto and fall in love with. So I think it was huge in terms of pushing me in the direction of just being kind of freed to just release things as I made them and not overthink them.
That's an incredible education, and just in terms of delivering to those people.
But yeah, well, that whole experience taught me so much about, working quickly, working with different genres, just making decisions really quickly. It was a weird and extensive self-education.
So when did you get your YouTube account?
I signed up in 2006. I actually still remember when I first heard about YouTube, because my mom read about it in a newspaper article.
Really?
She's like, wow, look at this, Andrew. Anyone can put a video online. And I thought the concept was brilliant right away, but I didn't really start making stuff. I was actually, when I first got the channel, hosting fan videos for this comedy project. So some people would make little animations or things to those short, funny songs. And I thought, well, the YouTube channel will be a place where I can put all that stuff. And that's why my URL to this day is Songs to Wear Pants To, which is a funny name I came up with for that.
I was wondering about that.
Yeah. And now I've got like the Andrew Huang redirect, but
Yeah.
you'll still see Songs to Wear Pants To come up. But I forget why we were talking about this.
The beginning of YouTube and.
Oh yeah, no. So I was just posting those fan videos for a bit, and then I think it was 2010 that I started to see how great the community was on YouTube. I learned that it was the second biggest search engine in the world, so it was a great place for discovery, and that's when I started posting more regularly there.
Do you call yourself a YouTuber when you introduce yourself to people?
It depends who I'm talking to.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think if they already know what a YouTuber means, then I might say that. I used to have a real problem with the term. I felt like it had too many negative associations, but now I think it's just kind of much more widespread and accepted.
Yeah. No, it's definitely got a thing about it now, but I think people are realizing how creatively, and the fact that some people, obviously in terms of children right now, their dream job is to become a YouTuber.
Yeah.
Which is a very strange thing. Do you have advice for like young kids wanting to do that? Because do you think they should be creating and uploading when the internet isn't quite as disposable as it once was?
It's a good question. I think a platform like YouTube has been successful as it has been because it allows anybody to really effectively share what they're passionate about. And if you have something that you can be an authority on, or that you can share really unique perspectives on, I think there's still so much room for people to find success on YouTube. And then, with that, though, comes all of the difficult parts of it, the unpredictability of the income, the long time it takes to really get momentum on the platform. It's certainly not easy, but it's very, very enjoyable once you're there. I guess something that I heard from a friend recently that resonated with me is that she was saying that you shouldn't be so concerned about growing followers.
Yeah.
We were on this panel and everyone's like asking about their YouTube advice and whatnot. And I think it's important more than ever these days to kind of recognize that it's okay to like do your thing without trying to like grow as fast as possible, and not making that the focus as much as that can be a good thing. But doing it because you think it is the best way to share your ideas.